on a path to that in April, and of course that's got to come up all the way through the agency. Our technical authority is a big part of that. The crew hears about it. I think they said they just heard about it yesterday, so they're heavily involved. You know, obviously we're going to make the right decision to keep them safe. If that decision is we have to do something drastic, then we'll do that. But right now we're on a path to press to get to the root cause, and then we'll make the final determination from there. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Reed.
I think you did a great job touching on it, Jim. And you know, every time you see me coming, you take a step back because I'm coming about heat shield. But we really have a lot of really strong trust in this team. We have some really talented researchers and engineers looking at the problem, and I know we will find the right solution. And for sure, this crew, we're not going to launch until we know we're ready, until our team knows that the vehicle's ready. And we will keep the pressure on. But so far, I think all the right things are being done. Anybody else want to comment on it?
Thank you both. Next, we have another question on the phone. Andrea Leinfelder with the Houston Chronicle.
Hi, this question is for Jim. I was hoping you could give a little more detail on what you meant by saying we might fly different missions. Like, are you suggesting that if the lander isn't ready in time, maybe you'll fly astronauts around the moon for a second time? Thank you.
I think we're always one of the things Pam talked, and I'm not going to get her words right, so I won't even try. But a few months ago about what we learned from ISS. I think one thing we learned from ISS is to make sure we're flexible, so we keep human spaceflight viable. And one of the things that ISS did was really look at the assembly sequence as hardware was available and it wasn't. I think it's incumbent upon us to do that. That's what I was referring to, is we're trying to look at all the missions we could fly to keep learning. We may fly 2 and want to fly a different mission for 3 because we want to understand how the system works better. I don't want to look at it as a negative of, hey, we might not fly 3 the same way. For me, it's continuing to learn to do exactly what Reed said, so that eventually we're putting humans on Mars. We're not going to accomplish everything in one mission. We shouldn't expect to. What we should do is expect to fly it safely and advance our cause of understanding, to do our science, but cause of understanding of our vehicles and systems.
Thanks, Jim. We have another question on the phone from Sarah Derry with Radio Canada. Sarah?
Le vaisseau Orion, comment ça s'est passé aujourd'hui? Peut-être un mot sur ça, s'il vous plaît.
I'll say a couple of words in French and then in English so it's understood here as well. But pour moi, c'était incroyable de voir la capsule Orion pour la première fois. C'est la première fois que j'ai vu dedans la capsule et c'est magnifique. Et seeing the capsule for all of us sent shivers down our spines as we saw it for the first time inside, and real flight hardware made a real impression. And something that kind of stood out for me over the last couple months as we've been getting into the systems, digging in deeper to the systems, is that I already knew going to the moon was hard. Administrator, you talked about it. Kennedy talked about it. That's why we're doing it. I already knew it was hard, but boy, it's harder than I thought. As I start to look at all the systems and all the people trying to get to the solutions that we need to really get to the moon and get back and still be breathing when we land in the Pacific Ocean, it makes an impression. And when we're talking about timelines and stuff, what's so obvious to all of us behind the scenes when we see it day to day is the success is not in the final solution. It's not in the touchdown or the launch date. The success is in the learning that's happening like right now. Like learning is happening right while we're sitting here in stuff that is going to serve us on our ultimate objective, which is to get to Mars.
Here on the right, do you have to say?
Yeah, J.D. Gallup with Florida Today, USA Today. Just a quick question. You talked about training and testing. What do you guys do to relax? What are you doing to kind of mentally prepare for going on this mission?
You go first, I'll follow up.
So, we spend a lot of time doing this, spending time with you all, sharing the good news. So honestly, when we're not doing this, that's a good time too. But no, we understand how important this is, and thank you for being here to share the story. But I have a family. I'm a husband and a father, and just the time that I get to spend with them And they understand how hard we're working to make this successful. And so just being able to be home and truly relax, that is a win in and of itself. So it's great to be here, but it's also going to be great to get back home.
Yeah. And, you know, Victor brought up family, and I think one of the fun things that we do as a crew is get our families together. When we travel, oftentimes our families will come and they'll get to know each other, and that is really a great way to integrate. We feel like a family in and of ourselves, and I think they are also feeling that way. But just taking time, last night, for example, on this trip, we found a restaurant and the four of us went out to dinner together and had a great time, just, you know, camaraderie and spending time together. So all the normal things, just like we'll have those group meals in space in the Orion vehicle. We're doing it here on Earth to prepare for getting to know each other and all that trust and relationship building that's going to be needed for ultimately the successful mission that we're going to do together.
And I'm hearing whispers or question about which restaurant.
We're government employees, you know we're not allowed to
No
say.
endorsement.
Next question. Richard with the Orlando Sentinel.
Hi, thanks. And this is for the astronauts. Sorry, Jim. Last time Reed and I were in the same room, we spoke. We had an Apollo astronaut telling us great stories. I'm wondering if each of you have had the opportunity to discuss with any of the people still with us who have already traveled to the moon, and if there's any inspirational stories that you might be able to share. Thank you.
I almost missed a call from General Tom Stafford because I thought I was a telemarketer on the day that we were announced as a crew on April 3rd. And I did pick up the phone, and what really shocked me was how unbelievably excited he was that we are going back to the moon for the agency, for the nation, and for the planet. So that was my story.
And, you know, someone who is very active in lunar science, period, and obviously the architecture that we're going to use to go back to exploring the moon and beyond is Jack Schmidt. He's still around. He's still very active. And to see his excitement and continued enthusiasm about this project is great. And so he's always been around. But someone who I've had some really interesting conversations with about recently, and he didn't go to the moon, but was an Apollo astronaut, Rusty Schweikert. And our conversation centered around human nature and ancient wisdom. And I'm gonna save it for later because I think he's gonna have a chance to tell some more of this story. But the ancient wisdom part was a really fascinating conversation.
Thank you so much. We have time for one more question. Here in the front.
Yusuke Tomiyama, the Yomiuri Shimbun, Japanese Daily. My question is to Mr. Nelson. You mentioned the difference between the Apollo program and the Artemis program. One major difference is international cooperation. Japan secured the opportunity to both fly on the Gateway in the Artemis program, but the opportunity to land on the moon has not decided, so uncertain. What do you think about the opportunities for Japanese astronauts to land on the moon?
This is a question that every country, most every country in the world is asking. And of course, the specific answer to your question will be decided years later. Thus far, those countries that will be represented by an astronaut going to the Gateway have participated in the planning and will participate as part of the Gateway, which is the mini outpost or space station that will orbit the moon. The question about landing on the moon is to be determined. Obviously, it will be as a result of a participation. In Japan's case, Japan is very interested in doing a compartmented, pressurized rover on the moon. That would certainly be a part of the consideration, but other nations are doing the same kind of planning for the future as well. So even though we have a U.S. ambassador in Japan named Rahm Emanuel who constantly is asking me on behalf of the Japanese government these questions. Nevertheless, that's going to be determined some period in the future.
All right, thank you all so much. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. I know we had a lot of outstanding questions, so please feel free to reach out to us in the NASA newsroom. You can learn more about NASA's Artemis missions at nasa.gov/Artemis, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.